Have you ever wondered why, the nicer you are, the worse people treat you? You're polite. You're accommodating. You show up. You stay late. You give more than you take. But somehow, you're overlooked, undervalued, disrespected. You try to be understanding. You forgive too easily. You avoid confrontation. You think that's maturity. You think that's kindness. But what if it's not? What if it's fear, dressed as virtue, fear of being disliked, fear of rocking the boat, fear of losing love, so you shrink yourself to stay safe. And here's the hard truth. In a world that rewards power, niceness without boundaries is not respected. It's exploited, because when you don't draw the line, no one else will. Carl Jung said, "What you do not bring into consciousness will rule your life, and you will call it fate." You think they're walking all over you because they're mean. No, it's because you never said stop, because you trained them to treat you this way. But this ends now. In this video, you'll learn how to shift from nice to powerful, from approval-seeking to presence, from being liked to being respected, not by yelling, not by playing games, but by reclaiming the one thing you gave away too easily, your self-respect. Let's begin. We're taught from childhood, be nice, be agreeable, don't make people uncomfortable. So you become the peacekeeper, the helper, the one who always says yes. But here's the problem. Life isn't a classroom. It's not graded on good behavior. It's a power dynamic. And when all you bring is kindness, you become prey. Easy to use, easy to ignore, because kindness without strength is submission. You smile when you're frustrated. You overgive when you're exhausted. You avoid conflict even when your boundaries are violated. That's not noble. That's survival. It's a learned habit, a defense mechanism, a shadow strategy to avoid rejection. But here's the truth. The world doesn't reward you for being good. It rewards you for being grounded, for showing backbone, for saying no, for standing tall when it would be easier to shrink. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And that includes pretending your weakness is virtue. So ask yourself, is your kindness real? Or is it just fear, hiding behind a smile? Because unless your kindness is backed by power, you'll keep getting crushed by people who mistake it for weakness. You don't need to be mean. You need to stop disappearing into people who don't see you. There's a silent epidemic, and it doesn't make the headlines, but it ruins lives. It's called self-abandonment. You want to be loved, so you trade pieces of yourself, hoping they'll give you something back. But they rarely do. Because here's the lie you've been told, that being good is enough, that being nice is the answer. But in reality, the world often doesn't reward kindness. It exploits it. You become the emotional servant, the mother who always shows up, but collapses the moment no one's looking. The loyal employee who covers everyone's slack, but never gets promoted. The partner who forgives too quickly, hoping love will finally feel safe. You say yes when you're screaming no. You laugh at jokes that cut you. You explain yourself again and again to people who aren't even listening. Why? Because you fear rejection, not being useful, not being wanted. But that fear, it trains people how to treat you. They don't see your kindness. They see your compliance. And slowly, you vanish. Here's the truth. You are not weak because you care. You are tired because you overcare and under boundary. Carl Jung said, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." That means your growth, your power, requires darkness. Requiere honesty. Requires looking at the part of you that is terrified of saying no. You don't need to be cruel. You don't need to raise your voice. But you do need to stop negotiating your worth in the currency of sacrifice. Because real love doesn't require self-erasure. It begins when you finally say, "This version of me deserves to stay." It's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. That quote, it's been misunderstood for centuries. People hear feared and think aggression, domination, cruelty. But Machiavelli wasn't writing for bullies. He was writing for survivors. He lived in a brutal time. Rulers were killed by their own allies. Kindness was weakness. Indecision was a death sentence. So he asked a hard question. What truly protects you? Not charm. Not popularity. Not favors. Because people forget favors, but they never forget power. Especially the silent kind. That's where surgical coldness comes in. It's not cruelty. It's control. It's the ability to say no without flinching, without guilt, without over-explaining. Coldness, in this sense, means clarity under pressure. It's what keeps you grounded when someone tries to test your limits. It's what makes people think twice before taking advantage of you again. Let's bring this into real life. In the workplace, you're always the one picking up the slack. You want to be helpful, but soon you become the default. And when you finally say no, they act surprised, maybe even offended. That's not on you. That's the result of you training them to expect overgiving. Now flip it. You say no the first time. Calm. Direct. Unapologetic. Suddenly, they treat your time differently. In family, you set a boundary with a toxic relative. Not because you're cruel, but because peace is more important than obligation. In love, you don't chase. You don't beg. You let distance speak for you. Because here's what most people don't get. The strongest boundaries are the quiet ones. Not screamed. Not explained over and over. Just held consistently. That's how you earn respect. Through unshakable energy. No outbursts. No passive aggression. Just clear decision. Machiavelli wasn't telling you to become a tyrant. He was telling you, don't depend on being liked. Because people can love you and still cross your line. But when they respect you, they hesitate. They pause. They measure their words. That hesitation, that's power. So stop over-explaining. Stop repeating your standards. Say it once. Mean it. Live it. And watch the energy shift. There's a kind of power that doesn't scream, doesn't demand attention, doesn't beg to be heard. It's the power that walks into a room and makes people sit up straighter, without saying a word. This is silent authority. And it's often the most respected form of power because it's not performative. It's internal. You don't need loudness. You need presence. It's how you carry yourself, how you move, how you look at someone and then look away without fear. You don't flinch. You don't chase. You don't explain. That kind of calm, that kind of quiet, it unsettles manipulators more than any threat ever could. You've probably seen this before. The boss who says very little but everyone listens when they speak. The person in the meeting who stays quiet. until one sentence silences the room. Or maybe it's the person who simply walks away from disrespect without a single word. That's latent power. Power that isn't always visible, but always felt. And here's the key: it's not about doing more. It's about withholding strategically. Instead of reacting to every provocation, you choose silence. Instead of justifying your decisions, you let your actions speak. Instead of fighting for attention, you command it without trying. This drives certain people crazy, especially those who feed off drama, who test your boundaries just to see you flinch. But when you stop reacting, you take away their weapon, you interrupt their script, and you force them to deal with the silence they can't control. Of course, some will say you've changed, that you've become distant, cold, unfeeling. Let them. That's not your concern. Your job isn't to be understood. It's to be self-aligned. And yes, you will lose people. But hear this: when you gain yourself, you never truly lose. The moment you stop bending to make others comfortable is the moment the right people start leaning in. People mirror what you project. If you broadcast uncertainty, they test you. If you broadcast detachment, they recalibrate. Energy doesn't lie. So what does it look like? Practically, it's walking away mid-conversation when someone crosses a boundary. It's saying no once and refusing to repeat yourself. It's letting people sit with your silence, letting them feel the discomfort of not getting a reaction. Because in that discomfort, they realize you're not playing their game, and the rules have changed. The bottom line: you don't need to raise your voice. You need to raise your standard. When your energy is solid, your presence does the talking, and your absence becomes a statement. So here's the real question: why is it so hard to set boundaries? Why do you freeze, apologize, shrink, even when your soul is screaming, "This isn't right"? To understand that, we have to go back, not to your last relationship, not to your boss or your partner, but further, to childhood. You see, for many of us, our fear of confrontation was trained into us. Maybe you had parents who shut down your anger, who punished you for speaking up, who praised you only when you were good, quiet, agreeable, selfless. And so, you adapted. You learned that love comes with a price. Approval must be earned. Being liked means being small. You stopped expressing needs and started anticipating others. You became the helper, the fixer, the one who never made trouble. But inside, a pattern was forming, a script, a belief that said, if I'm not useful, I'm not lovable. If I say no, they'll leave. If I take up space, I'm selfish. That's not personality. That's programming. And every time you override your truth, every time you silence your gut to please someone else, you reinforce that script. Now here's the cost. You lose touch with your authentic self, and you attract people who benefit from your silence. It's a dangerous cycle. So how do you break it? Start here. Identify 3 situations where you perform to be accepted, where you smile when you want to speak, where you say yes, but mean hell no, where you overextend, overcommit, overgive just to feel needed. Write them down. Then ask yourself, who would I be if I didn't have to earn love? Would you still attend that meeting, still stay in that relationship, still explain your worth? This is the beginning of power. Not the loud kind, but the kind that comes from realignment. Because when you stop betraying yourself, you stop resenting others. You begin to live from your center, not from your fear. And that shift It's magnetic. Your energy changes. Your posture changes. Your standards rise. And slowly, the world adjusts. People treat you differently when you treat yourself differently. They start to feel your presence. They pause before crossing your line. They sense your depth because you're no longer hiding it. So remember this, you don't change the world by yelling at it. You change it by changing the signal you send out. And that signal starts the moment you choose yourself over your old story. Let's stop pretending. You don't lose respect all at once. You leak it, drop by drop. Each time you say yes when you meant no. Each time you laugh off disrespect. Each time you comfort someone after they cross your line just to keep the peace. But Machiavelli would ask peace at what price. Real power doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It draws a line and watches who dares to cross. So here's the blueprint. Simple, but surgical. Step 1. Identify the pressure points. Look around your life. Where do you feel tension, but stay silent? Where do you feel violated, but keep smiling? Where do you feel drained, but keep showing up? That's where you're being tested. Not by them, by you. You can't fix what you won't name. And until you admit where you're abandoning yourself, you'll keep calling it love, loyalty, being nice. But it's not. It's fear of conflict, of rejection, of being alone. Step 2. Set boundaries that aren't up for debate. No more soft delivery. No more nervous laughter. No more, sorry. But just no. Just, that doesn't work for me. Just, I'm not available for that. A boundary isn't a wall. It's a door. You get to decide who walks through, and on what terms. And if they push back, that's data. That tells you everything. Step 3. Back it up with behavior. Words without action are just noise. You don't need to make speeches about self-respect. You just need to live it. Don't show up to places where you feel small. Don't give access to people who drain you. Don't explain your worth. Embody it. Because when you walk away from disrespect without saying a word, you say more than 1,000 affirmations ever could. Step 4. Don't soothe after saying no. Here's the trick. You finally set a boundary, then your guilt kicks in. You feel mean. Too much. So you follow up. You soften it. You try to make them feel okay about what they did. That's the old pattern. That's the sabotage. Because you weren't too much. You were just finally honest. Don't apologize for clarity. Don't massage their ego for hurting yours. Hold the line. Now listen closely. Every time you grow, someone will flinch. It's not your job to shrink back. It's your job to stay centered and let the discomfort do its work. Because what you're really saying is this: I will not negotiate with my dignity. And some people will leave. Good. That's not loss. That's liberation. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That starts here, with a hard no, with a line that doesn't move, with a version of you that finally decides I'm done being easy to tolerate. Because at the end of the day, you teach people how to treat you. And no one will ever respect you more than you respect yourself. Let me leave you with this truth. You don't earn respect by demanding it. You earn it by becoming it, by living it, by showing the world, in every small decision, that you no longer beg for your worth. Respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you radiate, not through force, not through ego, but through quiet certainty. When you walk into a room and you no longer shrink, no longer explain your existence, no longer say yes out of fear, the energy around you changes. People feel it before you speak. Because here's what most don't realize. People don't treat you based on who you are. They treat you based on who you allow yourself to be. So ask yourself, what have you been tolerating in silence, out of fear, out of habit? It's time to cut the rope. That old script where you had to earn your place, overgive to be loved, stay small to be safe, it's expired. Burn it. Write a new one. Because when you respect yourself enough to walk away, to say no without guilt, to stop over-explaining your worth, you teach the world how to meet you. People mirror the standard you set for yourself. Raise that standard. Then hold it. Even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. And now I want to hear your first act of power. The new boundary I'm setting is, drop it in the comments. Own it. Speak it into the world. Let this not be another video you nod along to. Let this be a starting line. And if this spoke to something deep inside you, if you felt that subtle shift in your chest, that's not coincidence. That's your true self, waking up. In the next episode, we'll go even deeper. We'll dissect how to renegotiate your value in love, in work, in family, so you stop being the emotional servant and start becoming the strategist. Because the moment you stop begging to be liked and start walking like you matter, is the moment everything begins to align, not just outside, but within.